everybody. Nice to see you. How you doing? Oh, how you doing on a Tuesday? Welcome. Come on in. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I was thinking we could look at some TikToks today, some Reels, and just chat about what's going on in the world. The chatter that's happening in the world online, talking about parent-child estrangement, family conflict. We're all about it. Let's have some fun. Let's dive right in.
How do you think your parents responded to how that makes you feel about what you feel? What would they feel? Mm-hmm. What do you think your children would feel about how you feel about what your parents feel about you, that your grandparents inherited that they didn't feel? How would you explain that if your kids felt that way? Where do you feel that? Do you feel it in your elbow area? Where, in or around or outside or under or above or to the side of your body, do you feel that feeling? Mm-hmm. Oh, how do you feel? How do you feel a feeling? We don't actually know. And how does that make you feel? And how do you feel about how that?
How do you feel about how you feel? So there's feelings, but then those lead to more feelings. And then those lead to more feelings. So it's inception, right? It's like there's an inception happening of feeling to feeling to feeling to feeling. I mean, this stuff can feel ridiculous. I think that when therapists ask silly questions like that, it's usually because there is like a rhyme and reason. I can explain it if you want. It's funny because those can be so exhausting. I just think those questions of like, where do you feel it in your body? In your elbow? Is that where you feel it? Is that it? Just like, what are you doing? Why are you bugging me? Why am I paying you $150 for you to ask me, where do you feel that regret in your body, in your toes? And it just feels like, this is stupid. I shouldn't be here. Let me just explain the rhyme and reason, the wizardry behind the silly questions just for a second. Okay, you could think like clients come in and they have like a pretty dysfunctional thought. They're like, I am bad. All right. Poor fella thinks he's bad. So functionally, he can't see outside of this. I mean, and you know, like you could think like cognitively, it's like, I am bad. I equal bad. And as a therapist, you have a few options. You can try to argue with this. You can be like, you're not bad. You're fine, dude. Like, why are you freaking out? Like, just relax, okay? All right, see you next week. You know, you could do something like that, but that doesn't work. They feel bad. And after, you know, maybe you're a new therapist, you've tried arguing with your clients a bit, you realize that this doesn't really like help a lot if you just argue with this part. So what you do is you go through kind of a process of trying to get to the root of the problem. And one way you can do that, there's different ways, but a very, very common way, is you ask about how they feel. So it's not I am bad, it's how do you feel about the bad? Okay, you feel bad. How does that make you feel? It's almost like a layer of abstraction. You're trying to move from, in the world of psychotherapy, you could say it's discussed as self as content, I am bad, versus self as context. Bad is an ingredient in the soup, not the entire soup. So you ask, how do you feel about that as one possible question? And then you ask, where do you feel that in the body? And the reason we do that is because it starts to activate memory. It's so much easier to recall memories if you're in touch, if you're paying attention to what's going on in the body. So how do you feel about being bad? Well, I feel sad. I feel sad about being bad. And then where do you feel it in the body? Usually the belly. Yeah, come on. In the stomach, in the chest. It's hardly ever the elbows or the toes, you'll find. Feel sad in my belly about being bad. Okay, good. We're getting somewhere. Then you ask for a memory. And usually the memory that your therapist is going to ask is like, what was the last time you felt this feeling in your belly about being sad, about being bad? What was the first time you felt this way? Or what was the worst time? Last, first, worst. Those are, oh, you can't even see it on the thing here. Let me try to write it in a place that you can see. Last, first, worst. I'll ask you a question, something along those lines. When was the first time you felt this way? When was the last time you felt this way? Well, the last time I felt this way was with my partner who made me feel sad about being bad. Or what was the first time you felt this way? Well, it was my dad who made me feel sad about being bad. And you're like, all right, tell me about that. Well, I remember I was like 4 and I spilled my drink and my dad screamed at me and he said, "Are you an idiot?" And I felt like an idiot. And then he stormed off. And then you ask a simple question of just like, oh, was that kid actually bad? Like, was that kid actually an idiot? Is that true? And then that kind of causes a little bit of a glitch in the brain because, again, you're in that activated spot because we talked about the body. Maybe you're in touch with the stomach ache or the headache or the whatever. And so you're like, no. And you're like, okay, what is true? What is true about that kid? The kid just dropped the glass. That's a normal thing for a 4-year-old to do. And that doesn't make him an idiot. Okay? So zoom out, be objective. Like, what is the truth about that kid? The kid's fine. Dad was, I don't know, whatever, dysregulated, stressed, doing something he shouldn't have done, which was screaming at a kid. All right. And then you bring that back, you bring that insight back to the current day. And it's like, all right, because it's part of the same emotional territory. So then you bring it back and then you kind of click it into place in the present. And you're like, all right, is it possible that in the same way that kid was actually fine, not bad, you are actually fine, not bad? And that can have varying degrees of success. Now, if that doesn't click right away, which, that'll click for 30% of people. And then like the other 60% or so need something deeper. So you don't just, it can't be a few boxes you check off in 30 seconds like I just did now. You have to kind of take your time and go through that territory with a bit more care. And you might get all the way to the first worst, or last. Someone was telling me about that time with your dad when he yelled at you. And they do something like EMDR. You process that memory. You don't just reflect on it more intellectually. You actually process it. You get into the experience. You explore what that feels like in the body. You do something like sensory motor psychotherapy or somatic experiencing. You pay attention to the body cues, the reflexive defense patterns that came up in a memory like that. You, I don't know, you can do parts work. Actually, parts work would happen a lot earlier. You wouldn't go into the first, worst, or last in parts work. That's more, that's just not like what IFS would do. They would go earlier. They would kind of touch onto the feeling, touch onto the body sensation, and then say something like, well, okay, a part of you feels that way. There's a part of you that's feeling that way, that feels bad. And then you might ask about that part, how that part feels about other parts of you, how that part has a role that protects or that guards other parts. And we can go into that. It's a whole web of different stuff. The main thing to take away, though, is that those silly questions are meant to get you out of your locked up, tunnel-visioned insecurity, stress, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, your misery. And if we were to boil it down really, really simplistically, it's like you can try to change someone's mind by subtraction. Like, hey, stop thinking that. And if that doesn't work, you can try it with addition. Like, okay, we're going to add context to this. We're going to add your memories, your feelings in your body, your emotional world. We're going to add information, add context until this clicks into place and makes more sense and allows you to flexibly move within the context of this inner world instead of feeling like it's beating down on you, instead of feeling like you're just powerless. So that's a little bit of the rhyme and reason behind those ridiculous questions. I hate those questions. When someone asks me, what are you feeling in your body? I'm like, shut up. Just shut up. All right. I'm looking at some of the comments here. Oh, so good, so good. Yeah, it's a good start for fixing the issue, Cass says. Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, it's a good way to go. If you're a new therapist and no one ever taught you that, take notes, because that's like level 1. It's just that basic walkthrough. Should have learned that in school. All right, let's go to the next video. Why isn't there audio?
Of course. My siblings had no complaints. Is it possible I had a bad childhood, yet my siblings had a good one? Of course. My siblings had no complaints. They were never physically or emotionally abused. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you were. That's a fair point. But why? Why would a parent treat one child differently from the others? Ready? Your siblings were treated differently because your siblings needed your parents, so they felt like parents. You never needed your parents, they needed you. So you being you held up this mirror to your parents to show them that they weren't actually the parents they told you and everyone else they were. So of course they're going to favor the other siblings. Being the black
Huh?
sheep in a toxic family is the biggest compliment you'll ever have. They're saying that we are abusive and controlling and manipulative, but you're not like us. Thanks. Try my fucking best, bitch. Is it possible?
Hold on. What happened? I don't understand. Hold on. Well, let's watch again. Did you follow? Can someone explain to me? Explain to me what the aha moment was. I think I missed it. I don't understand.
I had a bad childhood, yet my siblings had a good one. Of course. My siblings had no complaints. They were never physically or emotionally abused. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you were. That's a fair point. But why? Why would a parent treat one child differently from the others? Ready? Your siblings were treated differently because your siblings needed your parents, so they felt like parents. You never needed your parents, they needed you. So you being you held up this mirror to your parents to show them that they weren't actually the parents they told you and everyone else they were. So of course they're going to favor the other siblings. Being the black sheep in a toxic family is the biggest compliment you'll ever have. They're saying that we are abusive and controlling and manipulative, but you're not like us. Thanks.
I still don't get it. Second time through, they needed you, they didn't need you. The siblings needed the parents, so they acted like parents. You didn't need your parents, they didn't act like parents. You're the black sheep, it's a compliment because it exposes. I don't understand. Someone else understand in the chat? I don't get it. What's the point? Anybody? Okay, so someone says, yeah, Gabor Mate says that siblings do not have the same parents because they're in different phases of their life with each child. Hold on, let me see if I can get the chat up here. I haven't built this out. Hold on. Can I do this? Can I hold on, sorry. Can I make this large and so that we can all see? Okay. Fun. Okay, so what did Gabor Mate say? Yes. Oh, whoops. Gabor Mate says siblings do not have the same parents because they're in a different phase of their life with each child. Yes, that's correct. I mean, I think that certainly every kid gets a different set of parents. I mean, I feel that way. I feel that way with my own kids. Like, I was just getting my sea legs with my first kid, and I've done a lot of work in therapy since my son getting older, and then I think certainly my daughter is getting the more regulated version of me. My daughter is also getting, my youngest daughter is probably getting the version of me, though, that's most busy, in my career. I think my oldest daughter probably got more one-on-one time with me. That's certainly the truth. So it's like, yeah, every kid gets a different experience. And I also think personalities mesh together in different ways. Like you could think like personality kind of falls along 5 different categories. Do I need to go into that? Yeah, why not? We're here. Okay, so personality kind of falls against 5 different categories. It's like you have openness, and that's openness to new experiences. That's like creativity, stuff like that. You have conscientiousness. Oh gosh, conscientiousness. Hopefully my messy handwriting covers up that I don't know how to spell the word conscientiousness. Openness, conscientiousness, you have extroversion. And then you have agreeableness. Oh, don't know how to spell that either. And then neuroticism. Okay, kind of spells ocean, if you could think of it that way. Now here's the thing that's helpful. Is like neuroticism is just proneness to negative emotion, specifically like withdrawal and volatility. some personality science for you. Withdraw, volatility. Agreeableness is compassion and politeness. I'm realizing I shouldn't be writing all of this out. What are we doing? A big personality lesson here. Withdraw and volatility. Sorry you can't see it. Yeah, let's zoom out a little bit. Withdraw and volatility. Agreeable is compassionate. Politeness. Extroversion is something like just like positivity and then engagement with other people. Conscientiousness is work ethic and tidiness. And then openness is intellect and then creativity. There's all these different combinations of personality temperaments that you could have. I guess the point, I'm going too far down that rabbit trail, but the point is something like the more that you relate to your kids, the more you're going to have that shared meaning, and then you can have shared experiences, and then that draws you together along those planes. And so me and my daughter are both very extroverted, and so I'm sure as she gets older, that's going to mean like a lot more social activity, and even the kinds of environments we feel comfortable in are going to be different than, I actually don't know if my younger two are extroverted or introverted yet. They're a little too young for me to be able to suss that out. But let's say my son's introverted. I would just pick different kinds of activities to connect with. If my daughter, my oldest daughter, is very competitive, so I could see, I don't know, me training her for whatever sport she's into, or us playing games. There's always a hierarchy. There's always someone winning and losing. There's always a goal. There's always an accomplishment in the game. My son, that's not as necessary. He's down to just make a creative world where there's no hierarchy. There's no winner loser. He's just enjoying all of that. And I think that just means we're going to relate differently. He's going to get a different side of me, a different part of me, a different aspect of my personality is going to come out in connection with his personality. And so you have different connections with each of your kids. And so your kids do get different versions of you. It's like my daughter's going to get the kind of more conscientious, high openness, competitive version of me. My son's going to get kind of the softer, higher in openness, creative, more relaxed version of me. And so on and so forth. So that makes sense to me. I went too far down that hole, but that was fun. Someone in the chat says, move on. Wow. Okay. Hey guys, can you just be nice? Someone's saying, what music? There's no music playing. What are you talking about? Woo, ah, la, la, la. Oh, never mind. Instagram is glitching. My bad. Okay, thank goodness. Okay. Yeah, someone's saying the music is super loud. I can't hear it all. There's no music playing, chat. What are you talking about? Okay, so back to this video. I have no idea what he's saying. You didn't need your parents. Parents didn't need you. So I guess we'll move on. Bum, ba-dum. Does anyone else in the chat know what he's saying? Next video. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Ooh.
Look at what happened when they were a kid and own up to the role that you played. Take responsibility like a parent should and extend the bridge. And then wait for them.
I didn't start from the beginning.
If your kids don't want to talk to you after they become adults, it's your fault. Look at what happened when they were
Not true. Not true. Simplistic.
a kid and own up to the role that you played. Take responsibility like a parent should and extend the bridge. And then wait for them, because them walking across it and rebuilding the relationship is up to them. If they don't want to talk to you, it doesn't mean you didn't feed them, take care of them, put them in school, clothe them. It means emotionally something happened. You need to identify it so you can work on it. Because chalking it up to they suck and they don't love you is never going to mend the relationship. I'd say any kid would want to mend the relationship with their parent if the parent led with, I'm sorry, how can we fix this? And actually wanted to. Took 100% full responsibility for the situation and didn't try to pivot any of the responsibility back to the kid. If your kids don't want to talk to you after they become adults, it's your fault. Look at what happened when they...
Sometimes I need to listen to these twice just because, like, it's because I don't understand. I just don't understand. Okay, if your kids aren't talking to you, it's your fault. Obviously, that's not true. Parental alienation happens. People lie. People have misunderstandings drastically to the point where sometimes people cut you out of their life and it's founded on a misunderstanding or a parental alienation circumstance where someone deceived you and There's propaganda that just caused you to push someone away wrongly. So that's obviously not true, but let's keep going.
For a kid and own up to the role that you played. Take responsibility like a parent should and extend the bridge. And then wait for them.
Okay, there's something there. You can take responsibility. I think like, I use this analogy often. It's like, think about like a flower box, okay? Geometry. Okay, so let's say that like there's like a weed inside your flower box, and it's like, this is the lie. And it's like, I can't control this lie. There's this lie that popped up in the flower box, and maybe someone else put it there. It's like maybe your ex said, well, your mom doesn't really love you. All she cares about is herself. And then the kid's like, well, dad says all you care about is yourself. Or, you know, maybe your son gets married, and then the wife is like, well, your mom is just a narcissist. And then it's like, Mom, listen, Denise helped me realize that you're a narcissist. And then it's okay, so there's like some lie. So the idea is like, you're not supposed to take accountability for the lie. It's not like, you're right, honey, I'm a narcissist. Or you're right, sweetie, like all I care about is money. Like that's not what we care about. What we care about is like, often lies take root in soil where there's hurt. Like think about it. Like there has to be a context where the lie makes sense. If you came to me and you're like, Matthias, you know, I don't know, your golden retriever buddy, do you know that he hates your guts? And then I would just look at you and be like, listen, have you met my golden retriever buddy? There's not a bone in his body with hate in it. That dog is just a ray of sunshine. He doesn't hate anything. Like so the idea that, you know, my golden retriever secretly hates me is laughable because there's no context for it. There's no soil that lie could plant in and then grow out of. I don't have a golden retriever named Buddy, but I did watch Air Bud, so I have I have an internal buddy. Okay, good. So it's like, what we need to do is we need to look for the hurt that makes the lie possible. So you could say like, okay, the narcissist thing. Were there any moments with your kid where they felt unseen by you? They felt unheard, unloved, uncared for, even if it wasn't your intention, even if there was limitations beyond your control. Is it possible that there were moments where there was hurt? And so a lie pops in, oh, he never even cared about you. And it's not that the lie is true, but the lie, you could think like, drew upon the soil, the setting of some hurt and unseenness in the relationship. That's what you need to take accountability for. Mom, Denise, help me realize you're a narcissist. And it's like, honey, as I've reflected, as I've been in therapy, whatever, it's like, I've realized there's really been times growing up where I didn't see you, where I was concerned with my own stuff. I was in my own world, and I really like overlooked some of your core needs. I think there's times when I made things about myself when I really needed to slow down and really make sure and pay attention to what you needed. And times when I stopped at the surface and thought that you were okay when you clearly weren't, and I should have asked more questions. What was that like for you? What were some of those times where you fell into the background and you needed me to pause, slow down, and see you? Can you see that? Can you see how that takes mature responsibility for the moment without adopting a false label? Because to take on the label, you're right, Sonny, I'm a narcissist. It's like, that's a lie. And you're not going to repair a relationship with a lie. Lies is not going to build back trust, like that's self-evident. So you have to find a way to take responsibility for the hurt that the lies are growing up in. And when you do that, it removes the hurt, or resolve the hurt, repair the hurt. Lies don't have anywhere to sprout out. Does that make sense? All right. Someone says in the chat, that'll preach. It'll preach. Childhood pain is one thing. Adulthood carrying childhood pain is another. Yeah. How was that like for you? It takes a mature person. Yeah, it's the magic question, I think. What was that like for you is like my favorite framing, my favorite kind of question. I'm realizing that for those of you on a vertical stream, that chat looks like a piece of work. The window is just really odd. Hold on. Let me here, just Take a second. All right, reback. Okay, sorry, chat. Sorry, chat, about the chat. Sorry, chat, that the chat wasn't looking good for the chat. And we back. Yep, everyone in the chat says thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Yeah. What was that like for you? So someone asked in the chat, you think asking what was that like for you is still good to ask even when you think they are struggling with a lie? Yeah, I think that's like the antidote to taking responsibility amidst a lie. We think that the idea is like, well, we need to expose the lie. We need to tell you like, well, that's not true. That's going to sound and feel like defensiveness. For someone who is convinced of the lie, they're going to think that's defensiveness. So you need to take accountability. You just can't take accountability for the lie because that's more lying. Like, you need to take accountability for the genuine hurt, the facts of the matter. What are the facts? The facts, they felt unseen. They felt unheard. So like a label, you never cared about me. Get underneath of that. That's just a story. What are the facts underneath of that? It's like, well, there were moments they didn't experience your care. That's what's underneath of it. It's like, hello, like, it's just, it's obvious. So the label of, oh, you never cared about me. Yeah, of course, that's not accurate. But are there moments they didn't experience care? Hey, very plausible, a very reasonable thing to explore. Good. I realized that I did not press record on my camera. I have this memory card. I'm going to put it in the camera, and then I'm going to press record so that the good people watching from home can have clips later. Please hold. Fun. All right, next video. Or did we get out all the way through this one? No, I didn't like anything he was saying, so we're gonna move along. I have a couple other posts I say for this one. What about this?
Of feeling frustrated.
If your kids don't,
Entitlement is the accumulated experience of feeling frustrated and then having someone else give you immediate success.
wow.
That's what it is. And I'll never forget seeing this family of 16-year-olds who was like horrified. Their kid had a full-on tantrum at 16 because they weren't flying first class. And they were
Oh my
like,
gosh.
every parent's nightmare. And they're like, how do we get an entitled kid? The most well-meaning parents. But this was a kid every time something didn't go his way. And I think money makes this more complicated because you can buy kind of your way out of kids' frustration. You can. So it's almost hard to resist that if that's an option. But every time it was like frustration, success, frustration, a new option, frustration, I figured it out because someone else did something for me. Well, when you finally get to the point at 16, if that's your circuit, and then you're frustrated because something's surprising, it's not really about first class. Your body actually is like, WTF? Like, wow. I literally was not built to tolerate this. Right. And then it ends up looking awful, but really, it's really vulnerable. Entitlement is the accumulation.
Yeah. So you could think like what she's saying here, this is brilliant, is like every kid has a zone, let's just do this because it's too big of a word, a zone of proximal development, ZPD, huzzah, a zone of proximal development. And what that means is like there's two kind of zones. There's like the zone that I'm like learning, and then it's like you could say that everything in here is complicated and difficult, but it like you could think like it hurts. Hold on. I'm drawing off the map. Right here, it hurts. Everything in this situation hurts, but it doesn't harm me. And then there's harm over here, right? So, like I have toddlers right now. So my toddler's learning how to tie their shoes. Like, my 4-year-old always wants me to put her shoes on for her, and it's tough, but I'm like, nope, we're gonna sit here and wait 20 minutes for you to tie your shoes because you need to learn how to tie your shoes. The frustration, the anguish, is not pain that's going to harm her, right? It's going to hurt, but she's going to learn how to tie her shoes. She's going to learn that competency. I'm not going to save her from the frustration within her zone of proximal development, right? That's the task of a parent, is within reason. You can't do this all the time, but like with enough frequency, you got to expose your kid to zones that hurt so that they can develop frustration that they can tolerate and overcome. Now, like, there's zones of harm. Like, if I told her, I don't know, okay, here's an example. Like, if I told her, like, hey, you need to take a bath, and then she's like, I don't want to, and then I'm like, well, okay, fine, like, then you're not going to take a bath. You're just going to be dirty. And then I just let her not take a bath for weeks on end, and then she starts getting sores and, I don't know, like, infections. It's like, we could think like, oh, well, I taught her a lesson. It's like, no. Like, that was way too big of a lesson. Like, you let a toddler not bathe for weeks, and then they got sores and infections, and it's like, you pushed them into the domain of harm. They were not equipped to be able to have the forethought to think ahead weeks in advance on the implications of not bathing, and the effects on skin health, bacteria, and the like. Like, you thought that they could handle something they couldn't. And so it's your job as a parent to limit and to essentially, like, insist that they bathe. And that's for their good. That's the job of a parent, is to look ahead, look down the road, and then to see what they need, and then to advocate for the well-being of the child above and beyond their emotions and their feelings. And of course, there's tact, and of course, there's wisdom in how to navigate it. You're not going to overwhelm them with power plays, but you are going to make sure that they're okay. Their safety is your number one priority. So, okay, there's harm. There's harm that can come if you push too far. But you need to let them have a hard time here. But here's the catch, is that you don't leave them alone in this place of harm. You are there with them, and they're borrowing your nervous system to be able to navigate this frustration and pain. So they're going to be tying their shoes, and they're frustrated. You're not over there with your arms folded, tapping your foot like, come on, get with it. I'm waiting for you in the car. Because they're practicing how to hold that frustration. And so they need you encouraging them, sitting with them, helping regulate, rubbing their back, sometimes reassuring them, talking them through it, not solving it for them, not doing it for them, but being present with them. And that takes a lot of regulation on the side of the parent, because it's tough. It's like, okay, they're borrowing your nervous system, which means that not only do you need to regulate yourself through their pain and through their frustration, you need to also help regulate them through their pain and frustration, double load. So they're crying, they're frustrated, and then you're sitting with them and you're breathing. And then you can think like, well, they're not doing it, and they're just crying, and they're da-da-da-da. It's like, you're just going to wait. This might take longer than 10 minutes. This might take longer than 20. But you're going to keep a good attitude. You're going to encourage them. You're going to hold the space. And then when they do it, they're going to feel really accomplished. And you're going to let them borrow your confidence, borrow your certainty, borrow your reassurance and confidence that they're going to be able to get to the end of it, and the problem solving. So it's like, as they're in this zone of proximal development and hurt, you're there with them, and then slowly but surely that zone expands as they become adults. And then, as adults, we still do this. We have like our zone of competency. Okay, like as adults, this might be an aha moment for some of you. Like, you have like your zone of competency. But then there's the stuff that overwhelms you. I'm writing off screen again. Look at me. Complete noob. Overwhelm. Then there's the stuff that overwhelms you. What do you need to do in that stuff? You need to go borrow someone else's nervous system. You need to surround yourself with support. You don't do that with your birth parents most often. You do that with friends. You do that with a therapist. You do that with your partner. You do that with your community, with your dog. So when you are in overwhelm, you need other people to help calm down and to reassure you and to hold the space and help talk you through it, so that you can then come back down into calm. And then that's going to increase your zone of competency so that you become more and more of a resilient person. That's personal development. That's how we grow as human beings. So that's just good to know. So yeah, she's saying the spoiled child, the brat, the entitled kid is a kid with a very like shallow window of competency because, in part, perhaps the parent didn't expand and hold space and help them kind of like master their frustration and their dysregulation and discouragement. They bought their way out of it. They're like, let me resolve the frustration. Let me save you from the hurt. Let me take the pain away. And that boxes in the kid's competency over the long run, even though it fixes a problem in the short run. And I think that there's like a reasonable like a degree of, we don't do this all the time. It's not like every single time I make, like right now we're also with my 2-year-old. It's like you can buckle yourself. You get in and you know how to buckle it yourself. But when he's wearing a coat and it's cold and he's just like, oh, Dad, just buckle me. I will. I'll jump in there and I'll just buckle him for it. And eventually he's got to figure out how to buckle himself with a coat. Like that will happen too. But like for the time being, there's a balance of there's going to be times I'm going to hold you in the hurt because I know it's what's going to grow and expand you. It's what's best for you. My goal as your parent is to do what makes you flourish. And I'm staying here with you in it. And I'm paying attention. There's days when you're exhausted and tired and teaching day is not today. You just need gentleness. And that's good and fine too. But then other times when I need to expand your capacity because I love you as your father, right? How many people here had a parent who did that well? And then tell me in the chat if you had a parent who overdid that, like they kind of like, they thought your window was a little bit bigger than it was, and it actually ended in some of your harm, or they didn't let you borrow their nervous system. They kind of like, all right, good luck, go do it on your own. And you were just sitting there trying to do it on your own and it just felt overwhelming. Or vice versa, they tried to handle way too much. They just kind of gave in immediately. And then that created problems for you down the road. You kind of were, I think there's a lot of people I meet that are very self-aware that they were coddled and they're frustrated by it because it had more to do with, the parent not being able to handle the kid being in pain rather than what's best for the kid. And that's actually felt as a betrayal, right? So, yeah, how do you think through that? Yeah, Melanie says, yeah, I'm a parent who did not do that well. Yeah, it's so normal. I had both. It was either fully on my own at certain things, and then other ways too overbearing. Yeah. Ah, yes, they didn't let me borrow their nervous system. Yeah, that's the experience of a lot of people, where it's just like, yeah, okay, they kind of either it's kind of a sink or swim, kind of threw me in the deep end, but they weren't there to kind of hold me up. I mean, that's a good analogy. Dr. Becky uses that all the time. She's like, there's an argument that goes along the lines of like, well, I'm not just going to hold your hand through it because in real world, in real life, your boss isn't going to just hold your hand and check in with your emotions and see how you're feeling and reassure you and give you all these compliments all the time. That's not real life. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like swimming is such a good example. Like the water's not going to hold you up. I'm not going to hold you up either. But it's like, you got to learn, you got to practice. And so you need a parent there holding you up. And when I'm teaching my kids how to swim, I hold them up, but only as much. I want them to paddle as much as they can themselves, hold themselves above water as much as they can, and then I'm there to give them a bit of a boost so that they can stay above water, right? It's like I'm not going to swim for them, but I'm also not going to let them sink because they can't grow, they can't learn if they're underwater. Like of course, that's harm, not hurt. But they're also going to be like, Dad, could you just carry me around the pool? And there's going to be times when we're learning how to swim, or we're like, no, we're going to paddle. Like, you got this. Like, keep going. But I'm there to reassure and to coach and to guide and to hold the space they can't or don't know how to hold yet. That principle can expand to all of life, right? Okay, good. I mean, what do you think? Yeah, it's been difficult. It's been difficult being a child of the parents that didn't care and put the effort in versus my wife's parents who coddled her, and how to reconcile the two experiences. Whoa, yeah, okay, interesting. So you got married and then the experiences are flipped. Yeah, that's complex. My parents didn't always do this well, but I know that they helped me thrive in their own way. That's really sweet. That's good. Yeah, well, they were holding me too much. Yep. It's hard to find the balance. And I don't think it's our responsibility always to know the balance. Like, we're not mind readers, but it's our job to always be paying attention. And I think what's hard is just like for example, my son, when I tell him no for a snack, he's 2, he will cry with the gusto and compulsion as if he just like lost his puppy. Like the emotional of like no snack is just, it cuts him all the way down to his core as if he lost his sweet pup. And that's powerful. So it's hard because it's like, it's not necessarily that you can gauge it based off their response, because they might respond 10 out of 10, but you just realize it's like, I gotta stretch your 10 out of 10. Like, if 10 out of 10 is no snack, good. That means I'm giving you a protected world, but we're gonna stretch that, And so I'm gonna be here to regulate, hold you, and offer you the calm of my nervous system. I can't make you take it. My kid, when I'm holding my 2-year-old and trying to comfort him and calm him down, sometimes he'll be like, nope, I would rather scream, kick, and cry. And that's fine. He can do that. But I'm at least going to be there offering it. And so if he needs it, when he's ready, when he goes through the cycle of that emotional up and down, he's going to be able to down-regulate with me, holding him. That's the idea. So it's like having a very objective, realistic idea of like, what's the expansiveness that I need to bring my kid into according to their developmental age. And if you don't know what that is, you can ask people and try to get a consensus among friends and school counselors and teachers. Like, we think about that together, because that's a good barometer, by the way. Sometimes you think like, oh, my kid can't do that. And then you realize they do that at school, which is funny. Like, I found that out with my son. Like, after he'd go to the bathroom, I'd pull his pants up for him all the time, because I just had in my head like, oh no, he's not good at pulling his pants up. And then I saw him at school, and he just like, he's done it at the bathroom, just pulls his pants right up. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you know how to do that. I didn't even realize that I was like doing that for you when you completely can do that on your own. So that's just hilarious. There's just moments like that. So like, you have maybe the brain power of teachers, other adults in the kid's life, Sunday school teachers, whatever, to kind of think through some of those zones if you feel confusion around it. But all right, we've spent a lot of time on that topic. That's fun. I don't know. What do you think? Can we pivot more to teen examples? Yeah, sure. Okay, so I think that like with a teen that's dating, let's say like teenage daughter that's dating someone that I'm a little uncomfortable with and that I'm not really sure. I kind of ask that same question. Like, there's domains of hurt and then there's domains of harm. And so like, what are some of the possible domains of harm that I should intervene even if my daughter's going to be frustrated with me? I don't know, curfew, let's say that. You have to be back by 10. You have to be back by midnight. Daughter's frustrated by that. It's fine, Mom. It's fine. Well, what are the domains of harm that can happen after midnight? I don't know about you, anyone who grew up, but most of my childhood trauma that didn't happen with my parents, that happened to like outside my parents, most of the childhood trauma I experienced was after midnight. Most of the trouble I got into was after midnight. And okay, there's like a good amount of trouble that a kid should get into, but I don't know. I think that you're exposing a kid to risk when you're sending your daughter off with her boyfriend after midnight. It's like maybe there's more harm possible than good. But then there's hurt. It's like there's a guy that maybe has some red flags that you're not really sure about, but you're going to realize like, okay, she's going to kind of figure this out. She's going to kind of experience what it's like to be in a relationship with someone that doesn't really prioritize her. And that's going to really hurt her. But she's also wise, she's smart, she's adaptive, she's resilient. She's going to bounce back. So I'm going to hold some boundaries as she's figuring that out. No, you can't go out after midnight with that guy. No, sorry. But I'm not going to say you can't date him. Not because I approve of him, but because I'm like, I trust you, and I trust that you're going to learn here, and you're going to figure this out, and you're going to feel what it's like to have someone that doesn't treat you with the respect you deserve, but yet is not violent towards you, is not harming, like there's not a threat of harm there. It's just immaturity. Okay, so I'm going to let you date someone immature, teenage boys, hello, even though I know that's going to hurt. But then I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here to help you regulate. I'm going to let you borrow my nervous system if you want it. knowing that you're going to actually disperse. As a teenager, she's going to regulate with her friends and she's going to regulate with other people, not just with me. Okay, fine. But then there's the situation of her dating a guy that actually is like a real issue. Maybe he drinks and smokes and all this stuff at 16, and you kind of suspect that his parents aren't really super engaged and maybe have some harmful behavior at the house. And then you hear that his dad screams a lot and throws things, and you were, okay, there's violence in the house. Is he violent? And then she hasn't told you anything about him being violent, but you also just see that he kind of gets short and his moods fluctuate really intensely. And so you have enough red flags to be like, all right, no. Sorry, like, homeboy in it. Like, you cannot date him. And then it's like, what? But Dad, I love him. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to enter into the conflict. I'm gonna let you be super frustrated at me. I'm gonna willfully, on purpose, make this hard for us because I love you. Because my number one goal is to keep you safe. And I know, as a therapist, working with people in their 30s and 40s in trauma therapy, story after story after story of like, yeah, my boyfriend assaulted me when I was 15, when I was 16. He was violent towards me. And then the question I ask is, where were your parents? What did they do? And then the answer is something along the lines of like, well, they didn't really know. And then I'm like, they didn't know at all? Like, there's no signs? Like, well, they weren't paying attention. They just trusted me when I told them it was fine. And that is experienced as a betrayal. That's actually negative points. In full maturity, in full sobriety, emotional sobriety, looking back, nearly everyone looks back and says, man, I wish mom or dad would have intervened. Right? It's like, it's kind of self-evident when you think about it. Like, even though it would have made things complicated, even though I would have like hated them for it, and even though it would have turned into a big thing, I wish dad intervened. And then, because the number one goal, above letting a teenager express their autonomy, is their safety. And there's domains, there's varying domains. And what's so hard about teenager years is that those domains shift so rapidly. Like, the difference between a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old is like huge difference. Like 13-year-old and 15-year-old, huge difference. So it's like, I'm going to intervene. You can't date him. He's giving all the red flags of violence. No, Dad. Okay, fine. You can be with him, but you have to be here. You cannot be at his house. You can only be at my house and when we're home. What? That's so unfair. My only goal right now is to keep you safe. Or sorry, my primary goal is to keep you safe. I'm really worried. These are the flags. And I would tell her, like, these are the flags that I see. You're being so judgmental. No, seems like a great kid, but there's red flags. And my job is, your dad, is to keep you safe. That will create rupture, and the rupture's worth it, is what I'm saying. Because, yeah. Someone in the chat, saying, yeah, please save and share this. I'm father of 3 already. I will watch this again. God bless you. Someone's yelling. Oh, yeah. Well. That's interesting. Okay, so, someone says, this is complicated. At 16, I met a man in his 20s who groomed me. Had a really good relationship with my dad, but he banned us from seeing each other, so I just wound up running away with this man. Yeah, I mean, what that tells me is, like, there wasn't a follow-up conversation. There wasn't tracking. Like, there's this idea of, like, it's not only my job to, like, especially at 16, it's not just my job to, like, put in the hard boundary. It's also my job to explain my reasoning. You don't have to agree with my reasoning, but you should see the A plus B equals C. And so the idea is like, hey, if 16-year-old's going to run off with the man, I guess that's her choice. Like, but when she looks back on it, especially if it's not a shame-driven decision, it's like a love-driven decision, I think that in hindsight, there's going to be an awareness of like, oh, dad was trying to protect me. I disregarded that protection. I went with what I felt was right. That ended up being rough. And then if there's good rapport and trust with dad, there can be a return, to relationship with dad where it's like, hey, dad, yeah, you were right. You were trying to do what's best for me. I can feel that. You weren't just trying to control me arbitrarily. You weren't disregarding my opinion and my desires completely just to try and like rule my life and to control my life, yada, yada, yada. You were trying to do what's right. And I think like there has to be those honest conversations that aren't shame driven, but almost very pragmatic, very concrete. That's why I said like you would want to kind of describe the red flags, not in a way that he's like a terrible person, but just like, because here's the signs I need you to be able to see is kind of the lesson. It's like, because here's the thing, if you're 16, in 2 years, you're out of here. So like in 2 years, you're going to be making these decisions on your own. Here's the red flags I'm seeing. My hope is I'm going to draw this line right now. But then in 2 years, you're going to see, I don't know, because maybe that guy moves on and dates this other girl, and then they have like this awful thing, and you get rumors that he was like hitting her. And then you're like, oh gosh, dodged a bullet. And you're like, oh, okay, so dad saw those red flags really early. I didn't see those red flags early. But now that I heard from a friend of a friend that he was dating her and then he actually hit her, that's like, oh, dad was right. So then, okay, I need to pay attention to those red flags. Does that make sense? That's the hope of how that outcome pans out. Yeah, my father forbid me to see my teenage boyfriend. I just ended up sneaking around. It became more exciting in my teenage mind. Yeah, now what? Well, I mean, and that's just a natural part of like the autonomy stretch of those teenage years. The hard and fast, like, no, you can't see him. I just work with lots of 30 and 40-year-olds that look back, and there's almost more hurt
kind of
when
your
it.
way out of kids' frustration. You can.
I mean, tell me, some of you in the chat, there's more hurt that dad didn't intervene. Most of the time when there's assaults and there's these awful traumas that happen with teenage relationships, there's more hurt that dad wasn't more involved than the ways that they got over-involved. And I'm not saying there's not hurt when parents get over-involved. I guess the optimal way for a parent to get involved is to help the kid track why they're doing what they're doing, the signals that they're seeing, that they're sharing the decision as much as possible with the kid, that they're paying attention to how the kid wants to navigate the complex environment. But man, I can think of dozens and dozens of stories where it's like all this awful stuff happened, and then where was mom and dad? They just were totally hands off, and it's so painful. Yeah. Yeah, and then that same person in the chat. Yeah, more hurt than my dad didn't intervene and be more involved, for sure. Someone says, get a lobotomy. Well, there's that. There's always that. Let's do one more video.
Many reasons.
Entitlement comes from
I've been no contact with my dad for a little over 2 years, and there are many reasons for that, but recently he just for the first time asked me why, and I thought that was really funny because it's been like 2 years and he's never really asked me why I cut him off, and I responded to him, why don't you give me a list of reasons why you think I cut you off, and I'll let you know which ones resonate. And I think this is a genius response to a narcissist, because I feel like they're always trying to put the work on you. They're like, what? You tell me why, you give me a list, you make this make sense for me. Like, no, why don't you self-reflect? Why don't you become a little bit self-aware and ask yourself, why would this person want to cut me off? Make them answer their own damn question. I've been no contact with my dad for a little over 2 years, and there are many reasons for that, but recently he just for the first time asked me why, and I thought that was really funny because it's been like 2 years and he's never really asked me why I cut him off, and I responded to him, why don't you give me a list of reasons why you think I cut you off, and I'll let you know which ones resonate. And I think this is a genius response to a narcissist, because I feel like they're always trying to put the work on you. They're like, what? You tell me why, you give me a list, you make this make sense for me. Like, no, why don't you self-reflect? Why don't you become a little bit self-aware and ask yourself, why would this person want to cut me off? Make them answer their own damn question. I've been no
This is giving the energy of like when you ask your wife, like, why are you mad? And then she's like, what do you think I'm mad? And you're like, I should know, but this game sucks. It's like both are true. You should know. Yep. And the game of this game. Why does it feel like we both lose when we play this game? Of like, you tell me why you're mad. Good. Well, what do we say? What do we say here? You should tell your parents why you're mad. And there comes a point where the parent kind of knows, and they're in denial, and going into a long explanation starts to feel more like you're trying to kind of bring a case before them over like why the reason you're mad is valid, more so than it actually explaining. Because there's two different ways you could frame that. It's like, am I explaining why I'm mad, or am I trying to convince you that why I'm mad is valid? Those are two different activities. So it sounds like in her case, if she's dealing with a narcissistic parent, let's assume she's accurate. If she is dealing with a narcissistic parent, then yeah, it's likely that she doesn't want to get pulled into the game of explaining why she's mad, in the sense of trying to defend why she's mad. Like she's litigating, she's litigating her reasons. Because that's really, it's hard. It's a lot of emotional effort. It's frustrating when the other person is just like, well, okay, I'm not convinced. It's your job to convince me, and if you have good reasons, then I might concede. It's that there's an emotional labor there that's not fun. So some kids are going to cut off, instead of going down that path. But on the other end, it's like people have different perspectives and different experiences, and so just because you come to someone with frustrations and complaints doesn't mean that other person is supposed to immediately jump in and just start agreeing with your perception. And to think that if they don't immediately agree with your perception, that makes them narcissistic, or that they should be able to kind of read your mind. And if they can't read your mind, then that means that they don't care about you. I mean, obviously, those are simplistic. It's silly, it's silly. But there's a middle ground here where it's like, I'm going to share what I'm taking issue with. And then you have the choice, I guess, to come towards me or to not come towards me. Based on your response, that is going to determine what happens next. I think that trust is built on shared experience, and trust is built when someone comes towards you when they bring up a complaint, not builds a wall against you. So if you were to come to me and you're like, Matthias, you are pissing me off. You are just a piece of work. Now, I have an option there. I could be like, shut up, and be like convince me why I'm a piece of work, or I can have an attitude of like, oh my gosh, what happened? What's wrong? What'd I do? Like, what can I do to make this better? What I do to offend you? There's two totally different attitudes. And then you could be like, well, that's my favorite TikToker, and you said something dismissive and rolled your eyes at my favorite TikToker, and I hate it. Now, I can build a wall against you and just be like, well, you need to convince me why I'm wrong and what I said is wrong, and I wasn't being defensive, I wasn't being dismissive, and I can kind of like go down that road. Or I can lean in and be like, oh, okay, well, tell me about your favorite TikToker that I kind of turned my nose up at, and tell me about what that felt like for you, and what about that really hit you. What about that favorite TikToker of yours has really meant something to you, and how have they... I can tell that they really matter to you. So there's something that they're saying that resonates with your experience. And so I guess if I snuffed them off, that kind of felt like I was snuffing you off. I don't want you to feel like I'm snuffing you off or I'm turning my nose up at you. Tell me about it. So there's almost like a curiosity to your experience and how you're feeling, that it's not very quick to just absorb the label, but is quick to just investigate. Versus a posture of defensiveness, guardedness. You have to prove something to me in order to invigorate my curiosity. So I think when there's care, when you care about someone, when someone has maturity, they really lean in when there's a confrontation, because they don't want the presence of a wall or a boundary or an injury. They want to resolve it too. There's a natural desire to want to mutually share the emotional energy in repairing the injury. Does that make sense? So that's the middle ground that I sense in what she's saying. And you can't just snuff people and push them out. But it's not entirely their job just to read your mind either. Yeah, that makes sense, someone says. Good. All right, that's fun. We had a good time. I hope everyone's doing well. Let's do this. Let's meet together again on Thursday. Would love to see you. I have another live show in the afternoon on Thursday, and I will see you then, and we'll all be together. We'll go over some more videos, maybe some calls, maybe something else. I just enjoy having this space with you to think and to contemplate family connection, trauma repair, moving towards what's meaningful. We'll talk again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now. Goodbye for now.